Remember New Atheism? It seems like such a long time ago. The main difference between old and new atheism was one of attitude. The new atheists were aggressively opposed to religion, and they brought the debate into the public square with books, conferences, and debates. They were also effective early users of social media platforms such as Twitter and YouTube. The standard atheist claim is that religion is irrational, that it is not supported by evidence, and that many religious beliefs are logically or conceptually absurd. In addition to that standard skeptical critique of religion, the new atheists also claimed that religion is immoral and has negative consequences, and so it should be actively opposed. They argued that religion is the cause of war, hatred, and oppression. Such claims are harder to back up intellectually, but they have more crowd appeal. Most people find moral and consequential claims more interesting than epistemology. This shift to emotionally charged rhetoric also lowered the intellectual level of the debating arena. Especially in online forums, debates between theists and atheists tended to degenerate from philosophical debates to moral debates, and then to personal attacks and general mudslinging. That is the usual trajectory of ideological conflict. In spite of its flaws, the new atheist movement did help to bring philosophical issues into the awareness of many people. Debate tends to expose weaknesses in belief systems, and the biggest weakness of almost every belief system is that it has no ultimate basis or justification. New atheism raised questions that it couldn't answer, such as, what is knowledge and what is morality? New atheists tended to assume that their secular worldview had answers to those questions, and were often stymied when skepticism was turned against their own assumptions. New atheism generated an opposition movement, which I will call New Theism. New Theism was the mirror image of New Atheism. It was aggressive and highly online. Instead of playing defense against atheist critiques, the New Theists went on the attack. They critiqued the atheists as having no foundation for their beliefs, including the rejection of religion. The basic argument of New Theism is that atheism is incoherent, because atheism implies nihilism. The New Theists argued that the atheists couldn't rationally make any claims at all because they were lacking God as a foundation. The new atheists were often caught off guard by these attacks because, like most people, they had never really thought about the basis of their own beliefs. They came prepared to attack religion, not to defend their own beliefs against philosophical skepticism. Many a debate was won by the new theists' outflanking movement. They used skepticism against the skeptics by expanding the scope of skepticism to include all beliefs and methods of judgment, such as science, morality, and logic. Like most people, the typical atheist is philosophically naive. He has never thought about what his morality is based on, nor tried to give it a rational justification. He has never thought about the nature of knowledge, nor tried to come up with a philosophical theory of truth. He has never thought about the purpose of life. After all, the typical atheist isn't a deep thinker or a true skeptic. He just knows a few arguments against theism and uses them to claim intellectual and moral superiority over theists. New theism takes advantage of this naivete. The new theist turns skepticism against the atheist by challenging the atheist to justify his own worldview. And of course, the new atheist can't meet this challenge. However, the new theists aren't really skeptics. They are not motivated by the desire to expand rationality. They are motivated by the desire to win an ideological conflict and to protect their sacred beliefs from skepticism. Thus, the new theists must have some defense against skepticism. They can't rely purely on offense, they need a defense. To defend their beliefs, they use various complex philosophical rationalizations of religion. The most effective of those rationalizations is the transcendental argument for God, or TAG for short. The TAG is an attempt to bootstrap God out of the abyss of nihilism. It has the following general form, which is always presented with plenty of rhetorical flourishes. But this is the essential form. Without God, there is no foundation for morality, purpose, or truth. Without God, there is no ultimate explanation or justification for anything. Thus, you must believe in God, else ye shall be cast into the abyss of nihilism. This is a stick and carrot approach. The new theist first threatens the atheist with the horrors of nihilism. This typically involves bringing philosophical skepticism to bear on the sacred, unexamined beliefs of the atheist, such as his naive faith in morality and science. Then the new theist claims that God can rescue us from the abyss of nihilism. He claims that God solves all of the philosophical problems that he has brought to the attention of the naive atheist. God provides an ultimate foundation for morality, purpose, and truth. God provides an ultimate explanation for the existence of the universe and for the order that we capture in the laws of science. God gives us an ultimate justification for our beliefs. God is the foundation of belief, and without God, there is no foundation for belief. Now that I have summarized the tag, I will explain why it is wrong. First, there is an implicit appeal to consequences fallacy. It has the general form, you should believe in God to escape from nihilism. It's worth digressing briefly about why the appeal to consequences fallacy is so common and often persuasive. Basically, it presents a question of belief as if it were a choice between actions or outcomes, so it appears that you can simply choose the belief that you prefer. This is a trick. A question of belief isn't like a choice between vanilla or chocolate. You can't just choose whichever one you prefer. The new theist acts as if he is offering you a choice between God and nihilism, and you can just choose one or the other. Again, this is a fallacy. Even if belief in God did protect us from the horrors of nihilism, that wouldn't be a reason to believe in God. And God does not protect us from the horrors of nihilism. God doesn't give us a foundation for belief. I agree with the new theist that without God there is no foundation for belief. However, it doesn't follow that God is a foundation for belief. There is no ultimate foundation for belief. By ultimate foundation, I mean some objective ground on which the subject can base his beliefs. We cannot escape from subjectivity, nor can we place it on any kind of objective basis or foundation. We are trapped within subjectivity, so to speak. That's what the cogito is about. We can't escape from the condition of being subjects, and thus we do not have an objective foundation. If you believe in God, that does not mean you have an objective foundation, because you believe in God. Okay? God does not make you believe in God. As long as you are free to question whether God exists, it is your faith that maintains that belief. It is your belief. It is subjective. New theists will often act as if showing that the atheist has no foundation somehow implies that the theist does have such a foundation. That is an illogical leap. Philosophical skepticism exposes the lack of a foundation for belief. Skeptical critiques of knowledge and purpose apply equally well to the atheist and the theist. Even if God existed, and you believed that God existed, you would still be the ultimate authority over your own beliefs. You would still be free to question them, and thus you would have no foundation for them. God could not rescue us from the abyss of nihilism, because the abyss of nihilism is just the subject's awareness of being a subject. Having no foundation is a necessary condition of being a subject. New theism works as a debating strategy because most people are philosophically naive. They have never stared into the abyss. They are unaware of philosophical problems. When confronted by philosophical skepticism applied to morality, truth, and purpose, they become confused. They are put on the defensive. They have no answers. New theism resembles postmodernism in its hypocritical use of philosophical skepticism. Postmodernists use philosophical critiques of knowledge and consciousness to attack the beliefs of others, while holding their own beliefs off limits to examination and criticism. The same is true of the new theist. He assumes or pretends that his religious beliefs are exempt from philosophical skepticism. But they aren't. Belief in God does not provide a foundation for belief, because belief in God is itself a belief. If you challenge the new theist to show how God provides his worldview with a foundation, he will fall back on faith in God. His foundation is just a set of assumptions about God and how God relates to both objective reality and to the subject. These assumptions are held off limits to skepticism. The imaginary foundation of the theist's worldview is not God, but his refusal to question the assumptions of his worldview. If challenged, the new theist will typically emit a confusing barrage of fancy words, vague mystical notions, references to Plato and Aristotle, and other nonsense. Just be aware that this is a smokescreen covering up his lack of a foundation. It's like one of those cartoons where the coyote walks off the cliff and he doesn't fall until he looks down, right? The theist is basically saying, there's something under me, but that's his illusion created by his refusal to look down. And that's staring into the abyss. That's what he's refusing to do. If you keep pressing him to justify his claims, you will eventually get to his actual foundation: faith. Even if God is holding up the rest of his worldview, his faith is holding up God, and thus the whole thing rests on faith alone. And what is faith? Faith is the suspension of skepticism. It is the suspension of doubt. Of course, the new theist will try to project the source of his faith into the magical properties of God. He will say that God is inexplicable, beyond doubt, logically necessary, yada, yada, yada. But none of those claims give God an independent justification or basis. They are just beliefs about God, and thus open to philosophical skepticism. There is nothing that stops me from questioning God, doubting God, or not believing in God. No bolt of lightning comes out of the sky or out of logic if I question or reject belief in God. Faith in God doesn't solve any philosophical problem. It simply pushes the problem into the concept of God. It is a way to hide problems, not to solve them. For the new theist, God is a box into which he places all the problems of philosophy, and then puts a lid on the box and declares the problems solved. The concept of God is an elaborate deception contrived to pretend that philosophical problems don't exist, as long as we have faith in God. This faith is just the refusal to think about those problems, not a solution to them. Faith is just keeping the lid on the box. It's worth pointing out that the new theist's conception of God goes way beyond what he claims is necessary to give us a foundation for belief. Most of his religious beliefs could be discarded or changed without affecting his argument. The Christian Bible could be thrown away. The story about Christ on the cross, irrelevant. Christian morality, not required. To have some fun with the new theist, I could tell him that I have been persuaded by his eloquence. The tag has persuaded me, and I now believe in God. But there is a catch. I don't believe in his God. Instead, I believe in the seven-headed pig who lives at the center of the Milky Way galaxy inside a black hole. The seven-headed pig gives me a basis for morality, knowledge, and purpose. He is the ultimate explanation of everything, except himself, of course, because he is inexplicable. He provides the ultimate justification for all beliefs, but as the seven-headed pig, requires no justification himself. Tremble before the mighty seven-headed pig. Of course, this is just a variation on the flying spaghetti monster concept. The point is that the transcendental argument is not affected by a substitution of one God for another. Strictly speaking, this argument is unnecessary because the tag is fallacious. But it's also worth pointing out that it is religiously vacuous as well. Even if it weren't based on a fallacy, it would not justify the theist's specific religious beliefs. It would be equally compatible with Satanism, flying spaghetti monsterism, or seven-headed pigism. You just need a box, basically, right? You can put any label on the box. You can call it God, you can call it the seven-headed pig, whatever, it's just a box. Last but not least, the new theist's conception of God doesn't solve any of the standard atheist challenges to religious belief. So, are we just back where we started? No, not at all. The new atheists attacked belief in God, arguing that it is irrational. The new theists retaliated by attacking the atheists' faith in science, reason, morality, and purpose. Both were right. Neither side has a rational worldview. Neither side won the debate. Both helped to immanentize the abyss.